Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob O. Potzner. I'm an attorney from Connecticut, but I'm really excited about today's show, especially, I'm always excited, but today's show is a special show for me. As you may recall, if you watched last week's show, I'm doing a two-part series involving the world-famous Whiffenpoofs. It's an a cappella singing group, which we're going to have a lot more information about that for you today, and I'm really excited to hear them, and they're going to sing several songs, including one song that was recorded live today. Let's introduce the fellows right now, and we'll go around the horn, starting with Mark.
I'm Mark Dolhoff, class of 1977 at Yale.
Tom Bullitt, class of 1979.
Liam Richardson, class of 2024.
Brandon Sherrod, class of 2016.
We also have missing today is Sophia Kappa-Moore, who was the first female to be in the Whiffenpoofs. She was on my show last week, and just to make sure she has a presence today, we are going to play a song of hers as part of our show today. We have some really good historians of Whiffenpoofs, and they're going to tell you a lot about the history of the Whiffenpoofs. It's a very interesting history back to 1909, I believe it is. But to get you going, I think it's more important to hear some music first to see what the Whiffenpoofs do, and then we'll have some historical analysis. And I think Brandon's got the first song called Operator.
Operator, give me information, give me long distance, give me hey, 1, 2, 3, oh, operator, information, give me Jesus, operator, information, I like to speak, let me feel good, friend of mine, prayer is the number of faith is exchange, heaven is the street and Jesus was his name. Operator, information, me Jesus, all I operator, information, whoa, don't you ever lie me, why, operator, information, somebody tell me what number to call. Information, please connect me with the man. Don't you worry about the money, 'cause whoa, I'm calling from my heart. Operator, give me
Brandon, very, very good. Brandon, how did you choose that song as your solo in the Whiffenpoofs?
I think the song really chose me, to be honest with you. I grew up in the church and I love gospel music. It's been the root of my musical inspiration, and that was one of the songs that I sang. It was given to me by my pitch pipe, DJ Stanfill, and it was something I sang pretty often.
And a pitch pipe is?
It's the person who literally plays a tone in the beginning of each song to give the group their notes, and it's a person who also helps to organize us and arrange us over the course of the year.
Great. Now we're going to do a little history. We'll come back to you all a little bit later on and give the other Whiffs to have a chance to speak. But let's go to Tom and followed by Mark about the history of Whiffenpoofs, which I found fascinating. I learned a lot from your memos you both gave me about the history of the Whiffenpoofs, but also the history of music in the United States of America. Tom?
Well, thank you. So Mark and I are both senior citizens, so I have some notes that allow me to look at. And I think the starting point Bob, is you have to think back to what was life in America like in 1900. No television, no recorded music to take home, no radio. There was live theater, there was vaudeville, but common middle-class existence after a dinner in the evening might be sitting around and singing, sometimes with the piano, sometimes without. And so into that environment, a group of a cappella singers who know different parts is kind of a valuable commodity. And the Yale Glee Club had been around since 1853. There was a group in the Glee Club called the Varsity Quartet, who were sort of the best 4 singers in any given year. And in 1909, 4 of them adopted a 5th member and became a group that they called the Whiffenpoofs. I'm going to give you names just because it's kind of fun. Carl Lohman and George Pomeroy and Jim Howard and Meade Minigrode. And then the 5th voice was a guy named Denton Goat Fowler. And so where does Whiffenpoof come from? Well, I brought some visual aids. Little Nemo in Slumberland was a Broadway show that was playing on Broadway in 1908 and 1909. It's based on a comic strip that was popular in the States at the time. And at one point, Little Nemo is out fishing in a boat, and he catches a Whiffenpoof fish. And I think it was Fowler who decided that was a pretty neat name. And so they decided to call themselves the Whiffenpoofs. This is the Whiffenpoof tie, which to this day is one they wear, I think, at least occasionally. And it's a dragon on a swizzle stick.
Why is that? Why was that?
Well, the
selected?
dragon like was
Fish-like.
fish-like, right? And the swizzle stick because drinking has always been a very important part of what the Whiffenpoofs do.
Alcoholic beverages?
Alcoholic beverages. Every Monday night since, I'm not going to say since 1909, but most of the years since 1909, there were breaks in the war years. There's a club in New Haven called Maury's. The Whiffenpoofs sing every Monday night, not quite so much anymore because they travel a lot these days, but certainly when Mark and I were there, it was an every Monday night event. And there are cups of alcoholic concoctions that get passed around, and lots of singing and drinking and joyousness.
Is the singing better after a few drinks? From
Well,
the
it
cup?
sounds better to us. It probably may not sound better.
I think it worked on the audience as well, actually.
The audience seemed to like it. There were very famous Whiffenpoofs kind of early in the tenure. Monty Woolley, who was a producer-director, was in the class of 11. Most famously, Cole Porter was a Whiffenpoof in 1913.
Night and Day, right? He wrote Night
That's
and
right,
Day.
and
You are the one.
among other songs.
Right.
And Lanny Ross, the band leader, was a Whiffenpoof, and so was George H.W. Bush's father, Prescott Bush. There were issues during the war years. Things may have broken
One
down.
or two?
Both,
Both.
really. In both cases, people went off to war, and there wasn't opportunity to sing. Marshall Bartholomew, who directed the Yale Glee Club for a really long time, came along in the early 20s, revived the Whiffenpoofs as a part of the Glee Club.
The Glee Club and Whiffs were together at some points in time?
Yeah, well, until the late 60s, almost everybody who was in the Whiffenpoofs was also in the Glee Club.
Is that a requirement?
I guess you could say it was just a fact
Just
more
a
than
fact,
anything
yeah.
else.
We'll do a fact check later on, okay?
And then in the late 60s, remember the 60s were kind of a turbulent time. There was a lot of anti-establishment sentiment, and at some point the Whiffenpoofs said, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to go off on our own. And so by the time Mark and I were there, some of us were in the Glee Club, but not everybody was. And the Whiffenpoofs traveled on their own as well
One
as
thing,
with
by
the
the way,
Glee Club.
you didn't mention Rudy Valley. Mark, did I mention about
I
Rudy
didn't.
Valley? Rudy Valley is a pretty important name, is he not?
Yes. So it was the 1920s when the Whiffenpoofs came into fame. And it was the era of radio. And I don't think people today appreciate how big radio was in the 1920s. It was a disruptive technology. It brought together small towns, households, people in scattered places to a instrument that gave them instantaneous, spontaneous news and entertainment. So in the day when there was no TV or other forms of entertainment, as Tom said, people gathered around the radio. In fact, in the 1930, 40, and 50 censuses, this was a question: do you own a radio? It was that big a deal. At any rate, Rudy Valley was the class of 1927. He had a band while he was at Yale called the Yale Collegians, and he recorded the song, which became a somewhat big hit, not monstrous, that came later. But Rudy went on to host a radio show called the Fleischman Hour. In one format and another, it went for 10 years. It was one of the top 5 rated radio shows, again at a time when people listened to nothing else except radio. He recorded the song many times. It became a monster hit, recorded by other artists of the day like Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, Perry Como. They all did versions of the song, and that catapulted the Whiffs to fame.
And by the way, we're going to have you folks singing the Whiffenpoofs song today at the end of our show, and I'm going to play about 30 seconds of the Rudy Valley edition of that song, just to get a feel for how the difference in tonality, if that's the right word to make, those days to now. But going back to Tom, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom.
No, not at all.
I couldn't forget Rudy Valley. I'm
I
sorry.
think Rudy was quite important. And then in the early 40s, the Whiffenpoofs were alone on campus, with very few exceptions, as an a cappella men's group for a very long time. Remember, Yale is all men at this point, so there's always going to be only men.
And a cappella means?
Without accompaniment, just voices, no instruments.
Like we just saw with Brandon's.
Exactly. But in the 40s, I think because of the opportunity that the Whiffs had to travel, especially to travel to women's colleges and be celebrities.
The Seven Sisters, those kind of schools?
Yeah,
Vassar and those
particularly the
schools.
Northeastern women's schools, right.
Wellesley, Smith, those kind. Not that I know about those schools. I never went up to those schools, of course.
Other singers on campus would say, hey, I'd like to get into the act here too. And so several other groups started forming the Sons of Orpheus and Bacchus, who became the Society of Orpheus and Bacchus in 1938. The Yale Spizwinks, which both Liam and Mark were a part of, was a group that was around briefly in 1914 and then reformed in about 1940.
Those are for underclassmen, because the Whiffenpoofs have the seniors,
yes,
correct?
Yeah, really important point. By this time, the Whiffenpoofs are all seniors, and it is these other groups that end up being feeder groups for the Whiffs. So then we got the Alley Cats in 1943, the Baker's Dozen in 1947, the Augmented Seven in 1950, and they were unusual because they used guitars and did a lot of calypso music. They didn't last past the 60s. The Duke's Men of Yale, which was the group that I was a part of and became the Dukes of Yale in 2017, and the Fraternal Order of Bachelors, which was a group that imitated the Four Freshmen, a popular commercially recording group at the time. The way we do these songs is popular song is identified as, wouldn't we like to do this? Isn't this something an audience would like to hear? Broadway, Tin Pan Alley, and getting into the 60s, groups that you would recognize, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But you can't sing it the way they did, because you've got anywhere between 14 and 20 voices. The Whiffs are always about 14. And so you have to have somebody do an arrangement that splits the parts up.
I'm going to ask Liam, what's an arrangement, and are there different parts to the music that the Whiffenpoofs play?
Absolutely. So Tom alluded to some of the other groups at Yale in this all-male era of Yale before they admitted women. All of those groups, I think, still have maintained a first tenor, second tenor, baritone, bass arrangement of the voices. And that's sort of in descending order. You often have, in a song with instruments, the percussion section and the horn section and the guitars, potentially, the bass. And those are often not transcribed, but sort of interpreted and transformed into the backing instrumental of these a cappella songs. So if you, in Brandon's solo, you could hear in the background not just snapping, which is, I think, the one exception to the sort of vocal instrumentation, but a lot of dums and percussive sounds from the basses. There's more horny sounding tenor parts, and then you often have a soloist on top of that. The frequency of soloing in the Whiffenpoofs is a more modern phenomenon. I think for a very long time it was sort of a song split just among the members of the group, but that's sort of what arrangement is some musician hears a song, tries to transform it to be interesting for an a cappella singer.
And Brandon, who does the arrangements? Is it someone within the group typically does the arrangements, or are there historical books? I think Tom has some books that I think may show some arrangements. So Brandon, what can tell us about how the arrangements are put together?
Sure. So there's a catalog of arrangements that have been made from former Whiffenpoofs or arrangers in the a cappella scene that we can pull from. But there is also opportunity for members of the group to arrange music that's more contemporary. For example, we did a Sam Smith cover when we were in the Whiffs in 2015. And that was something that we wanted to do because it was one of the most popular songs in the world at that time. And so as a result of that, you do have a lot of collaboration and creating your own identity as a group, and also the opportunity to forge a new path forward if you choose to do so.
As assistant basketball coach, you have to adjust your team's playing to the players you have.
Absolutely.
Do you do that in the Whiffenpoofs when you're doing your songs that you choose and the arrangements? If you have a very strong, was it tenor 1, for example, if I got that right, or not so strong tenor 2, if I got that right, do you pick different songs based on the fact that you don't have the person who could do in class of 2019 like the one in 2018 did? Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, that's a fair analogy and analysis of that. I think the opportunity for choice in the group. There are some staples like the Whiffenpoof song. That's something that we all have learned, and it's all been a part of our understanding of, and also I guess rite of passage and being a part of the group. Within that, stylistically, you can look at the singers that you have and try to figure out what best suits their voices, and that's something that we try to do as a group. And you'll see with different years, there are certain arrangements that they've learned that I may not know, or Tom or Liam or Mark might not know. So. And
I'm a kid from Shelton, Connecticut. You were from Stratford, Connecticut. And when I was a youngster, I knew a couple things about Yale. Yale football, the Yale loss to Harvard 29-29, and the Whiffenpoofs.
Yeah.
You have the books, Tom, that you were going to just show us a little bit of?
Yeah, there's just a couple of examples. The Songs of Yale is a book that's been around since the early 1900s. I'm not sure exactly what year, Mark.
Songs of Yale goes back to the 1860s.
All right, then you've beat me on this. This is the 1953 edition, which is more or less still current. There are very minor changes. These are mostly arrangements of 4- and 5-part songs.
I don't know if you can see it on the screen. It's hard to see that, I'm sure. But
yeah.
You picked a solo song, however.
I picked a solo song. Anyway, a lot of these are part songs, meaning no solos involved in them. They're pretty simple, and a lot of Yale singers learned to sing them. In the early years, the Whiffenpoofs sang almost exclusively this kind of music.
When people see the Whiffenpoofs now, you see probably 10, 12 members. What's the number of members now usually have in the Whiffenpoofs? 10 or 12?
14.
14. Okay, 14. But when the Whiffenpoofs started years and years ago, they had 4 or 5, right? It wasn't
5.
always that many people.
5, yeah.
And in 2019, historically, I'm going to jump up a little bit, was the first year that women were allowed to be in Whiffenpoofs. And I think we're going to play right now, since Sophia couldn't come today, we didn't want her to lose out of being on the show. We're going to play now the Whiffenpoofs song that she sang, not the Whiffenpoofs song, but the song she sang as a soloist, which was Both Sides Now, made famous by Joni Mitchell and Sophia Campoamaro.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. How many things I could have done, but clouds got in my way. My way, my way.
The dizzy dancing way, that way it was, every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, I've looked at love that way, I've looked at love from both sides. Now from give and take, and still its love's illusions are. I really don't know, I don't know.
Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost and something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life. I really don't know love. I really don't know clouds at all.
Sophia, I know you're watching today's show, and I was not going to leave you out. The guys all said we're going to keep her in the show as well. So thank you very much for letting us. We can show that song again. Phenomenal song, and we missed you very much for today's show. I want to go a little bit from the history for a moment and go to each of you guys for a little bit about who you are and your experience in the Whiffenpoofs, et cetera. A minute and a half of each of you. And we'll start from the back. Brandon?
Yes, I'm Brandon Sherrod, born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Went to public school in Stratford, did a post-grad year at Choate, where I sang with the My Arrows, which is an all-boys a cappella group there. And then came to Yale and played varsity basketball for 3 years. My experience in getting into the Whiffenpoofs is a little unique, considering I did not sing in an a cappella group for the duration of my 3 years prior to auditioning. I was a part of Living Water, which was a Christian a cappella group, for the first month of my freshman year, and I soon realized that I could not have basketball practice, a cappella practice, and get my work done. So I made an executive decision to focus on basketball, which is what I was recruited for, and something that allowed me to attend a place like Yale. And I was very involved in musical performances and senior projects of former Whiffenpoofs, and really stayed in the mix musically, and ended up auditioning on a whim because one of my friends was like, you need to do that. And when I got in, the hardest part about my decision was telling my coach that I was going to have to take a year off of school to sing with the Whiffs. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I was telling Liam earlier that I had never traveled outside of the country prior to being a part of the group. And so to go from not having seen any countries outside of the US to seeing 26 in 1 year was a really magical experience for me. And also being able to focus on music for a year, not having to worry about the rigors and responsibilities that come along with being a varsity athlete was something I really was grateful for. And when I came back, I had my best year, and we won an Ivy League championship, and I went on to play professionally for 7 years in Italy, Finland, and Israel before coming back to becoming an assistant coach at Yale.
I have a trivia question for you, and that is this. Who was the team that Yale beat for the first NCAA basketball tournament win?
Baylor.
And who played on that team?
Torian Prince.
Well, more importantly, anyone here play on that team?
On that team, that Yale team, that was me. Yeah.
that's
So
right, I
also,
know.
also got a chance to, win the first ever NCAA tournament game for the Bulldogs.
If you were on Jeopardy, you would have lost that
I would have
question.
certainly
Yeah,
lost that. I was,
I got to tell you, I didn't know you personally back then, but when I read about your making the decision to be in the Whiffs, et cetera, and taking the year off, I really respected that.
Thank you.
Liam, talk about yourself.
Yes, so I moved a lot growing up. Feels like a real treat to have been able to attend Yale. It was a dream come true for me. Also recruited as a basketball player, but made the choice to stick with a cappella instead.
Were you a point guard? I'm teasing.
Yes, whatever the least talented player on the court was, that was me. Bench warmer, I think. Anyways, I got very involved in a cappella right at the tail end of some of the most strict COVID restrictions at Yale. So there was actually no a cappella singing or in-person singing at all my first year at Yale. I joined the Spizwinks, which is one of those feeder groups that Tom mentioned my sophomore year.
It was the best feeder group, wasn't it?
I think that's
Well,
what
Mark,
the
what
legends
were you
are.
in, Mark? You must have been Spizwinks.
Yes, it
Oh,
was clearly the best.
that's
at
a
the time.
correct Jeopardy question answer. Go ahead. Who were the Spizwinks?
Over the course of my 2 years, really found a lot of fulfillment in building the group back up. There's a degree to which Brandon mentioned the travel. A lot of these groups have a kind of more professional facing side now to fundraise for that travel and to organize the logistics of the transportation and the lodging and the performances themselves. So I found a lot of joy in doing that work, to the degree that I knew I wanted to not just audition for the Whiffs, but serve in a similar role for them. There's a David Brooks Atlantic piece where he talks about how so many college kids these days are learning a lot from their extracurriculars about leadership. There's a lot of sort of character development that happens in those spaces, and I think I'm a much better man now for having taken on that challenge of leadership that I wasn't sure I was ready for when I signed up to do it for the Spizwinks. So that's my story in a cappella at Yale.
You're sticking with it. That's your story, and you're sticking with it. Mark, you have a lot of history at Yale.
That's only because I'm old.
And you have a 2-hour limit, Mark. You have a 2-hour limit.
I'm the elder statesman here. I grew up in a household of music. My father was an organist and choir director. I think I have a picture of me when I was 3 years old in an Episcopal choir gown and robe, and it was a big part of my life. And never would have dreamt about going to Yale, never thought about it, until in 1973 the Yale Glee Club, along with the Whiffenpoofs, came to Pittsburgh, where I grew up, and performed at Carnegie Hall there. There is a Carnegie Hall in Pittsburgh. And the minute I saw the Whiffenpoofs sing, I said, I want to do that. I have to do this. And I applied to Yale with the intent of being in the Whiffenpoofs. I didn't realize, of course, that when I arrived on campus, you don't just sign up for the Whiffenpoofs.
You weren't recruited for the Whiffenpoofs.
No, you don't. You're not recruited for the Whiffenpoofs. In fact, if you are, they're probably not going to take you. The politics were such in those days. So I had a chance to live the dream.
A little bit more in your background, what positions did you have at Yale? Did you hold any positions at Yale?
So I was really active in alumni affairs, both in the Glee Club and the Whiffenpoofs at the time. I started the Yale Alumni Chorus, which is a flourishing organization today. I became the executive director and president of the Yale Alumni Association, which I served in as the head of for 10 years, and continue now actively with music and pursuing, quite frankly, working with other colleges and universities. I've oftentimes talked to the folks at the University of Michigan and Harvard and many others about alumni engagement, what works, what doesn't work, and how is it that they could make such choruses work for their institutions.
Great. Tom, before I get to your story, I'm going to have you show now your song. So I'm going to ask my director to play the solo that we have from Tom, and then we'll ask you about your background. Is that okay with you?
Heck yeah.
When she
my side. I'm so filled with pride. I want the whole world to know.
When my sugar walks down the street, all the little birdies go tweet, 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 tweet. And in the evening when the sun goes down, it's never dark when she's around, and she's so affectionate. I'll say this: when she kisses me, I stay kissed to her. Sing tweet, tweet, tweet. When sugar walks down the street, walking on down, down. Comme un joli va dans la rue, tous les oiseaux chantent chou, chou, chou. Et dans les soirs d'école et sans les temps, moi il n'y a pas d'homme. Dans la rue, tous les oiseaux chantent comme ça. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Whenever my sugar, I said my baby sugar walks down. She walks down the street. Birdies singing in the street.
Tom, did you select that as your solo, or it was selected for
A
you?
little of both. It was a suitable song for me, and I liked singing it. And I think Brendan's right. There's a certain amount of what suits the voices that you've got, and a certain amount of, well, we really want to sing that song because it was such a good song. This was arranged by a 1962 Yale graduate named Carl Kasel, and it was in the repertory for many, many years. I doubt they sing it anymore, but for 20, 30 years, it was a staple.
How did it feel to watch that from many years ago? Mark's laughing.
How does it feel, Tom?
All these guys going through some emotion here, you know?
I guess it was a pleasure. That was our 20th anniversary. That wasn't even when I was an undergraduate. We were back there for the 20th anniversary, and possibly TMI. I had just recovered from cancer, and so I was just delighted to be singing with the group again.
I didn't know that. So that'd be 1999.
1999, right?
Okay. Well, I'm glad to have you here today in the show. Now, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I had a similar experience to Mark's. I started singing in junior high school. I saw the high school chorus. They came and sang, and I thought, boy, that's really something. I would love to do that. And then I discovered a cappella men's singing through a group called the King Singers. And I realized, I can't remember why, that there was this great tradition of men's a cappella singing at Yale with a number of different groups. And so that's where I wanted to go to school. I also sang in the chorus and had a barbershop quartet and sang in a church choir.
Where were you from? I'm sorry.
Bethesda, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. So went to public school. The smart kids from my public school were lucky enough to go to Yale, so there were several of us who went. I joined the freshman year, I joined the Russian chorus and the Duke's Men of Yale. I directed that group as a junior and then was lucky enough to be selected for the Whiffs of 1979. And since then, I've done a lot of alumni work for both the Duke's Men and the Whiffenpoofs, and I currently am the co-director of a Washington, D.C. based group of refugees from college a cappella called the Augmented Eight.
Which college?
All colleges.
All colleges,
multiple
yeah.
colleges.
Actually, at the moment, there's about half of us who are Yale graduates, but we
The
have
others didn't graduate. I'm just kidding.
there's a couple of guys from Stanford, one from the Colgate 13, one from Princeton.
So you're still actively involved in
Absolutely.
music. How about the other folks? Mark, you're still involved, obviously, in singing and not, or you're not?
Yeah, well, actually, not so much these days because of my travel. Although I did take over the reins of the University Glee Club in New Haven and conducted that for 25 years. So I was very active at one point, but travel got the best of me recently.
How about you, Liam?
I sing for my church choir, and I'm enjoying that. I'm still adjusting to being an adult after college. So
I'm not an adult yet. I'm still waiting to be an adult. Ask my wife, she'll tell you.
Okay. But I think ask me again in 5 years, and I'll hopefully have a good answer of I found my right place to be singing post.
You gave a good
postgrad.
answer. I'd give you an A- on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Brendan, how about you? Your involvement in music at this point in time?
Currently, I've been relegated to tearing up the karaoke scene in New Haven and the Southern United States when I was doing some recruiting this past summer. When I was in Italy, in my first season, I recorded a cover album that became a benefit CD for my high school in Stratford, and then also for a community that had been ravaged by an earthquake after my first week arriving as a player. And so that was a great project, and I did some performing at the end of that season. Aside from that, I've done a bunch of writing, music lyrics, and also I produce music more in the R&B and soul scene. And I've released a couple of songs on Apple Music and Spotify. But outside of that, I haven't had a chance to do much of it since I've been coaching.
Do your players and the team that you're coaching at Yale now know about your singing exploits or not?
They do, and they remind me all the time, like, Coach, you were in the Whiffs. You should sing the national anthem, or you should, maybe we should go perform together. I've gone to see some of their performances, and it's been great to kind of be in the mix and around the community. And I'll join the Whiff song if the Whiffenpoofs are performing at any concerts around campus.
Very good. I want to ask each of you guys about the experiences. I know that you travel, and there's a different level of travel now, apparently, the Whiffenpoofs than it was before. Someone want to address the difference in travel now versus then? Did you take a year off, for example? When did that start, taking a year off?
I can address this a little bit, and then I think it's appropriate for Tom and Mark to speak to their experience some. Brandon and I are both members of groups post-2012, which perhaps doesn't seem so significant, but that was the first year that the entire group took the year off. The previous year's group had appeared on NBC's The Sing-Off, which is the show that launched Pentatonics. It had a lot of viewership for singing a cappella groups. And so there's a lot of demand for the Whiffenpoofs in the year after. And a very enterprising business manager approached that year's group and said, hey guys, I think we could make a lot of money, do a lot of traveling if we took the year off together. And it was such a success that it's been the precedent since then. That's not to suggest that people didn't take the year off because it's such an intense year before then, but that's a relatively modern phenomenon for it to be such a professional world touring group. There's generally a long summer tour with dozens of countries, if not more, involved, and a lot of domestic touring during the year as well.
Mark or Tom, you want to address, or both of you, what was happening in the Whiffs before you took the year off?
Well, we didn't travel as extensively. I think it's fair to say that. My group was the first to do an all-around-the-world tour. At the time, I think it was Pan Am was offering round-the-world tickets for all of their stops, and that was Honolulu and Tokyo and Hong Kong and Bangkok and India and then Frankfurt, Germany. So we were able to buy tickets based on what we had earned during the year, and we set up gigs all around the world. Since then, the world tour has become a big and important part of the Whiffenpoof experience. Everybody expects doing it. But prior to that, we traveled with the Glee Club, and we went to warmer weather in the spring. When Mark was in the group, they went to Bermuda every spring. My group didn't have that opportunity, and we went to Hawaii over spring break. So there were a couple of big trips a year, and then a lot of singing locally in the New England and New York area.
Any further things you want to say about that, Mark?
No, prior to the 1970s, the Whiffs would accompany the Glee Club. So the Glee Club did a round-the-world trip in '64, '65, and they did every other year tour: South America, Asia, et cetera. My year, we had an 8-week tour in the summer, but only in Europe. And during the year, we traveled extensively, mainly at the behest of Yale, because we were doing fundraising work on behalf of the university. So we had 7 different tours across the country, back and forth, coast to coast, which created a lot of consternation in our group because of the amount of time off that was required. This would later evolve to a point where the Whiffs took the entire year off because of the concert load during the course of the year. But I don't know if the group before ours did 75 or 76 tour. Do you recall? It was really the 70s were the years where we began to seriously do concert tours independently of the Glee Club. And it's grown today into the enterprise that both Liam and Brendan described.
Brendan said he was an anomaly in terms of he didn't sing an a cappella group before he got into the Whiffenpoofs. How about your experiences? You two gentlemen, and I'll get to Liam in a second. How did you qualify to get an invitation to be in Whiffenpoofs?
We sang in undergraduate groups.
Was it simply
It bears just mentioning the auditioning process.
That's
as
what I was
it
trying to
were,
get to.
okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Because
The attorney
in-
didn't help me out at
In
all.
our, did you audition? You were the first year. that
We
I
were the
auditioned.
first group to do auditions.
Yeah, so he took the Whiffenpoofs his year down a dark path, a dark path. But before then, you sang solos as a member of the groups, and we have a series of jamborees, which is a group concert of all the singing groups coming together. And the Whiffenpoofs would always sit in the front row. And intimidating as all get out, right? Because you had to go out as a junior and sing, knowing that this was your audition to be in the Whiffenpoofs. So it was a fraught process. It was disconcerting to many people. And then tell them what you did as a group.
Well, what happened our year is one of the people who was tapped in that process that Mark is describing, basically just singing a solo and saying, I'm a tenor one or a tenor two, joined the group and then said to the rest of us, really, I'm not very good at singing tenor one. And the director agreed with him. So we had to tap a 15th member to sing that part. And we had a wonderful year together, and he's still a very close friend of all of us. But we thought, well, we oughtn't allow that to happen. And so we started doing auditions so we could actually hear the voice part of the individual who wanted to sing with us and make sure that he had the notes. And I think that process has continued ever since, right? I think
Yes.
auditions are a commonplace now, but they didn't used to be.
I forgot to ask one question I want to ask, and that is, when we showed the singing of Sophia, there was one person did not have the traditional tails that you typically wear. Why was that person wearing a dress?
I think it's mental illness myself. I don't know what the, no.
Because when I saw that, I was surprised.
Another whole theme for a show would be the different offices that we all hold. We know the business managers and the pitch pipe, but everybody in the group has a role, right? And they go by various names. There is one person called the turkey.
The turkey.
The turkey, you still call it that?
Yes.
Yeah. And they always wear something a little different than
Okay.
everybody else. And I remember being different in the 70s was not wearing one glove or having red socks or something very inconspicuous. Nowadays, well, as a sign of mental illness, you can see how they dress.
Thank you, doctor.
No problem, no problem.
I'd like to add, we're having a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun last night at a pizza place in New Haven. I want to go through each of you for one experience, if you had, or two experiences that you had as a whiff in your travels or in whatever you did that was so important to you, where you look back and say, gee whiz, that was a great experience. I'm going to start with Tom, because he has the longest room to remember, so I want to make sure you don't forget what you want to tell us.
So a Whiffenpoof experience, I think probably the most important moment for me was after the Whiffenpoofs. I was the group historian, and which only at the time meant collecting matchbooks and pictures to put in a scrapbook, which I did. But I also became the person that brings us together for our reunions every 5 years, and even more frequently than that. And at one point, the group gave me a Maury's cup. I mentioned Maury's, the restaurant, and I mentioned that you drink cups, and they're big loving cups with alcoholic concoctions, and designated me the shepherd of the Whiffenpoofs of 1979. So I have a memorial cup that my group gave to me in thanks for all the work that I've done in organizing us in our post-Whiffenpoof years. I think that is, ironically, perhaps the most meaningful experience that I had.
Since you were the
as a
shepherd, did you sing the part that said, ba, ba, ba?
Always sang that too, yes.
Okay. I had to throw that in, guys.
That was
Actually,
good.
the Bobs, it's the sheep who sing that part.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Liam.
Sure.
Thanks, Mark.
It's hard to
Just
distill.
want to keep you on theme. That's all.
I'm sorry.
It's hard to distill the year into one experience. I think everyone will speak to that. a few highlights of my year were singing at the Sydney Opera House, singing at Team USA House as part of the Paris Olympics. But really, I think the standout moments were when we weren't singing for an audience, when we were together in a cool place at the top of a hike, at the top of the rocky steps after playing line tag together, just having fun. I think you feel close with other friends who happen to be very talented singers and who happen to want to sing with you and travel the world with you. And so it's those moments when you're actually kind of together by yourself that were most fulfilling for me.
Thank you. Brandon?
I think for me, and I echo the sentiments of everyone who's spoken thus far, and just there being a plethora of experiences that you can recount, but two things that stick out in my mind are, one, we were in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and I was with one member of my group, and we had happened to go out to a bar, and it turned into like a long party that went on until about 5 or 6 a.m. And we were sitting on the beach, and I remember it was July 4th, 2015, and we watched the sunrise. And I just remember it being like this otherworldly, magical experience, being in this place, and halfway through World Tour and feeling extremely blessed and grateful for the opportunity and experience, all because of the beauty of song and music and the wonder that it kind of brings to people. And that was one. And the second is my first time in Italy, which happened to be a second home for me once I became a professional, was with the Whiffenpoofs. And I remember that first night arriving to a homestay, which is really folks that were hosts during our time there, and going straight to the Coliseum and buying a selfie stick and bartering the man who was selling us a selfie stick from 15 euros to 5 euros and maybe getting 2 hours worth of photos with said selfie stick before it broke. But that experience, going from not knowing anything about the city and walking around for the remaining 2 days, and then coming back there a year and a half, 2 years later, and knowing it like the back of my hand, it was a great kind of reference point for me.
Did you go to Sorrento when you were in Italy?
I used to live 45 minutes away in Pompeii.
My nephew got married last year in a destination wedding, and after the wedding we traveled a little bit, and Sorrento was just unbelievable.
Gorgeous place.
Mark, your experience?
Let me put a little different twist on it. There are musical experiences that were magic for all of us. The first week back on campus in my Whiffenpoof year, we sang at a private dinner party at the president's house, where we were frequent guests.
President of Yale.
President of Yale, Kingman Brewster at the time. And at the dinner party, which was a small occasion, there must have been 6 or 8 people, were Robert McNamara and Ellsworth Bunker. And we were not just invited as the entertainment. Kingman would always have us there to mix and mingle, to meet with these people. And maybe it's my own class anxiety or angst, but here I was, a middle-class kid from Pittsburgh, all of a sudden thrust into a dinner party with world leaders. It was an entry into a new world. It was an entry, quite frankly, into a new class. We sang, near the end of the year, it was appropriate, we sang for President Ford. And here again, we're at a dinner table with President Ford. And it opened up new vistas for me. It widened my eyes. It broadened my horizons in a way that no other medium, perhaps, than music could. And I am thankful, I'm grateful for that experience, for the world gaining opportunity that it has.
Those are great stories. I feel like I've made some friends last night, tonight, and preparing for the show, and I'm sure you have a lot more stories you could tell. We have about 5 minutes more, or a little less, before we're going to have you sing the Whiffenpoof song. And I'm going to just lead into that because I learned a lot about the source of the Whiffenpoof song. This is my next Jeopardy question. Rudyard Kipling. Who wants to answer that question? Who wants to do a Jeopardy on that? Rudyard Kipling. Mark, what's the question?
He's the poet of the Gentleman Rankers in 1892, from which the lyrics of the Whiffenpoof song were appropriated.
I hope that was double Jeopardy because you made a lot of money on that.
Yeah, but what I win?
A slice of pizza.
I get a night out with Bobby O. Pizza.
And second place is 2 nights out.
2 nights out.
So let's talk a little about this song, because you're going to have the song singing in a few minutes for us. talk about the words in the song, and maybe if you remember, I'll ask whoever wants to go to one of the lines from Kipling or whatever that mean something, and explain to the crowd, the audience, about what those lines are for the song as you hear the song. Who wants to go first? I think Mark does.
No, no, I'm not
Tom,
jumping at the bit here. Well, I'll start it off. I think what resonates with most of us, especially as we get older, is the line "past and forgotten with the rest." We're on top of the world for a year. We're in, Liam, as you described, the Yale bubble. And all of a sudden, we become adults. All of a sudden, the bubble bursts on us, and we move into the real world. And the passage of time is something that, as young people, we don't appreciate. As you become older, you appreciate that passage of time and what, especially, those fleeting moments in college meant.
You know, I just have in front of me the lines from Kipling's poem that are applicable. We're poor little lambs who've lost our way, which I think you were talking about, ba, ba, ba. We're little black sheep who've gone astray. What does that mean, Tom? Any thoughts about that?
Well, one of the aspects of Whiffenpoof life is dissolute behavior. And
What's
so
that word? You did a fancy word that's a little bit much for this.
I call
Sheldon
it
kid.
mental illness. He calls it dissolute
I-
behavior.
You got a Sheldon and Stratford kid here. What does that word mean?
that bad behavior
Thank you very much.
induced by alcohol.
Thank you.
So I think that's the lost our way part. And the poor little lambs is we're innocents. We really don't know what we're doing.
Okay,
I think
that's a good answer. Then we have here, gentlemen rankers out on the spree, damned from here to eternity. The younger guys, who wants to take that one? Liam?
It was tweaked for the Whiffenpoof song to Gentlemen Songsters, which in itself is an interesting turn of phrase for a group that includes women. Gentleman is, I think, a word that the modern groups have thought about, and there are different opinions on how to resolve that, but I think it's beautiful to be off on a spree with the intention of singing as a songster.
So we'll leave to my fellow friend from Stratford, Connecticut. Damned from here to eternity, God have mercy on such as we, ba, ya, ba. You want to take that?
You know, I've got nothing, but I'll give it a crack. To be honest with you, I think it's just I think this theory of grace, that we've graced the earth with song, and that we've now returned, and we can talk about these experiences, and that's why we're on the Bobby O Show.
And last night when we were at the pizza restaurant and you guys sang the Whiffenpoof song to sing together for the first time, the crowd behind you, I don't know if you knew that, clapped for you, and we're very excited to hear that. Guys, it has been a privilege and a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show. I mean that sincerely. And we're going to have the Whiffenpoof song. You're going to step up and sing it for us live. But what we're going to do is we're going to play the first 30 seconds before we have you sing. We're going to do the Rudy Valley rendition of the song, which I think you gave me the idea, Mark, subtly, because you said how things were different. And then we're going to have the rendition from these 4 people who sang for the first time together last night and today. There was no alcoholic beverage last night, maybe a glass of wine. I had my Diet Dr. Pepper. But so I want to thank you all individually and personally. And I hope to see you again. If you're ever in New Haven again, some of you guys live in New Haven, I'll see you at the basketball games. And Tom, it's been a pleasure. Mark, Liam, Brandon, it's been wonderful. So let's now have the Whiffenpoof song, the first 30 seconds more or less from Rudy Valley. And then we'll have them singing live in studio in Danbury, Connecticut, Whiffenpoof song. This has been Bobby O, Bobo Potzner. Thank you so very much. And Sophia, we miss you also.
Oh, the tables down at Maury's, to the place where Louis dwells, to the dear old Temple Bar we love so well. To the tables down at Maury's, to the place where Louis dwells, to the dear old temple bar we love so well. Sing the Whiffenpoofs assembled with their glasses raised on high, and the magic of their singing casts its spell. Yes, the magic of their singing, of the songs we love so well. Shall I wasting and Mavornine and the rest? We will serenade our Louis while life and voice shall last.
Then we'll
Pass and be forgotten with the rest. We are poor little lambs who have lost our way. Ba, ba, ba. We are little black sheep who have gone astray. Ba, ba, ba. Gentlemen songsters off on a spree, damned from here to eternity. God have mercy on such as